So essentially, what you're about to see is a webinar where I was able to bring in a few of my friends who were trying to get started in entrepreneurship and get us have a guest speaker, Darryl Bellamy, who is probably at this point where I'm posting this on his way to being super successful as a speaker. So basically, a little intro about him. We both went to UNC Charlotte. I know, and from during that time, I can tell that he was a leader. So this is essentially a story of snippet in time from where we talk about him being a student leader and to where he was back then to where he is now, to where he essentially speaks across the country on the subject of how do you conquer your fear and really go after what you want. So in the essence of that, I'm conquering my fear and kind of pulling what was my first attempt at an interview session, which was really crappy. The audio is really crappy. The video is really crappy. I mean, I'll probably look back and look at this right here and it's probably not going to be what I want, but at the same time, you have to be a disaster before you're a master. So hope you enjoy this feature and look forward to better quality videos and definitely get more inspirational entrepreneurs on this channel. Thanks.
What's up? Yeah, so when I was in college, so undergraduate, or during my undergraduate years, I was pretty involved on campus. So, like you said, I was orientation counselor, RA, SGA. I was in a fraternity, doing all those things. One of those activities, or one of the things I was involved in, was called like the lead team, which was with the Center for Leadership Development. So while I was on the lead team, I was able to do workshops on campus in certain like student organizations and kind of just start speaking. So I think after I started doing those workshops, I think sometimes like maybe like months later or sometimes a year later, students will come up to me and be like, Darryl, like what you said or that quote you said was really, really good that you said a few months ago. So when I kept on hearing that, I think that was the first like inkling that I was saying things that might be important to people, and kind of showed me that what I was saying might be important. So even though I heard those things, I still kind of just pushed it over to the side and didn't really pay that much attention to it. So when I decided that I was about to graduate, or when I did graduate, I decided not to take a job, and I decided I wanted to start my own business because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur and work for myself. So I applied for like this business plan competition, didn't win it, but I still wanted to start my business called College Concierge. So the goal of College Concierge was to get first-year students on campuses, starting with UNC Charlotte. We want to get them food, leadership development, and get them everything that they needed during that first year. It's kind of going to be like an elite membership program for students, for freshman students. I was only going to accept 100 students. So I didn't take a job. I slept on a friend's couch or whatever, eating ramen noodles, you know, the same like entrepreneur like journey story. Didn't take a job, and I needed 100 parents to sign up, and I got like one parent to sign up. So it was like a total failure. So I had to go get a job. So throughout the next 2 to 3 years, I worked at Wells Fargo, TIA, Kraft, like in the finance whole industry, and I worked for a consulting company. And I even had a part-time job at one point at Trader Joe's because I was just trying to pay off the debt. Because remember, during that summer, I wasn't really working. I was trying to get the business started, so a lot of that money was on credit card, so I had to pay a lot of that stuff off. So I finally paid that off by working at Trader Joe's and my full-time job. But while I was working in corporate America, my goal was to always get back to entrepreneurship. So I was kind of like pivoting, you know, trying to think about how to like rework College Concierge, how to think about it differently, you know, reading books, still meeting a lot of different people. And about probably 1 year into my third job, which was at a financial consulting firm, I was just confused. So I was making good money. I was making maybe like $65,000, $70,000 at the time, right? And I was just confused, like, what do I want to do? I knew I didn't want to work there. I enjoyed it, enjoyed the people, but I needed something else to do. So I was reading books still, and I was like, maybe I want to go into real estate. Maybe I want to do a lot of these different things. And the books that I was reading said that anyone who's successful either has a mentor or a coach. So I didn't have a mentor or a coach. So what I did was I went to Google and I typed in life coaches in Charlotte. And I got on this phone with this lady who I wanted a meeting with. She was like $175 an hour. At first, I didn't want to do it. I'm like, $175? No, I don't want to put that money out there. But I wound up actually pushing through and meeting her. And that was the meeting that kind of got me to where I am right now. Because during that meeting, she was like, yo, Darryl, what are you interested in? So she had me take this personality profile before I got there. She's like, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? And I'm like, I might want to get in real estate, might want to help students, might want to speak to students, might want to do all these things. And she looked at me. She was like, Darryl, like, your face lit up. Like, something happened when you said something about, like, speaking to students. Like, what is that about? And I started explaining to her what that was about. She invited me because she was a full-time speaker and a coach. So she invited me that week and that Saturday to something called the National Speakers Association in Charlotte. So the National Speakers Association is where all, like, professional speakers who live in this area, like, hang out, like, once a quarter. We all get together and we learn about the business behind, like, how to build your speaking business, like books and contracts and all that other good stuff on how to build that. So I went to that meeting that Saturday. Remember, I just met her on Wednesday. Went to that meeting on that Saturday, and I looked around the room, and I was definitely the youngest person in the room. And then I was only maybe 2 to 3 people of color in the room, and I was looking around like, yo, this is something I can do. And that was the first time that I was around people who spoke full time. So from there on, I met with her maybe like once a month throughout that year, building that website, speaking for free, starting to get paid more as I started speaking more, started saving up money. So I saved up, I don't know, I don't want to get too far into this. Maybe there's some questions that go around this, but I saved up $20,000 throughout that year and quit the job, man. So I've been full-time as of this May for 2 years, speaking and traveling the country, speaking to students. So you can either make the mistakes yourself, or you can pay someone or find someone who's invested in you to show you the mistakes so you don't make the same mistake that they made. So my first coach was a lady named Nicole, Vibrant Coaching. Used her for like a year. So we're actually friends now. So throughout that whole year and a half, and I still use her periodically, maybe once a quarter, maybe twice or 3 times a year, we'll meet up and I'll show her what I'm up to, and she'll give me advice and stuff like that on what I'm doing. The first year I used her. So Nicole is a speaker who she does women's groups. She does like government agencies, police. I mean, she does a lot of different things. So I'm student focused. So after that year, I'm like, all right, she's helped me a lot during that year, but I want to find a coach that's in the student industry. So I started looking for people who are killing it with students. And then I found a guy named James Robalato, who we're actually a part of the same agency now. But I called him and was like, hey, I wanna speak to more students. I need some advice on that. Can I hire you as my coach? Then I hired him next as my next coach. And then his advice alone, he told me, for example, to join one student affairs group on Facebook. He put me in that group. I made $6,000 off that group alone because of his advice. Wow. And I paid him a lot less than that for his coaching. But everywhere I've gotten is always because I've either hired people or people have wanted to invest in me, or I find that mentorship and they've taught me things to get me further. But I always say, yeah, if you can't find a mentor, definitely find some sort of coach or somebody who can kind of lead the way. And then if you don't want to pay, so there's people who might not want to pay $175 an hour, or I think James, I might have been paying him maybe $300 a month or something like that. If you don't want to find a coach, you can start with like YouTube videos. There's Damon John who has books. There's no matter who we're looking up to, whether we're engineers, whether we're doctors, whether we're lawyers, whether we're entrepreneurs, there's people who have killed it in your industry thus far, where you can literally take their book and kind of learn from their mistakes that way as well. But yeah, I would say hands down, John, and team as well. Mentor, coach, definitely just takes you right to where you need to go a lot faster. When I talk about fear, so something I do is when I talk about fear to groups across the country, I actually collect fears of people, and I read every single one of them. So at this point, I've read, I wish I could show you, I could probably take a box from upstairs. I've collected over 7,000 like written fears. So people start with I fear that, and they write down what's stopping them from getting to that next level. So when I'm reading those, I've read over and over again. And the top fear category comes into the fear of failure, or not reaching the success that you might want to reach, or not reaching your goals and aspirations. I think we all have that fear at times, and sometimes we let that fear stop us from moving forward. So I had that same exact fear when it came to quitting a job. I had a mortgage. I had a car payment. I mean, I had bills. So to be able to just quit your job and think that you're going to make it, there was a lot of fear that went through my mind. But the thing that pushed me more than anything is the fact that, first thing is that I'm young. I have no kids. I wasn't married at the time. I think I had a girlfriend Yeah, I think, yeah. Oh, well, I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids, but I had nobody to really support. And I think a lot of times when we're young and when we're in our millennial age, or when we're in our 20s, we realize that we're never going to be as young as we're going to be now. So if you're going to make mistakes, like if you're going to jump out there and start a business, if you're going to jump out there and do it and do something different, there's never going to be a time better than today when you might not have a wife or a husband in your ear saying like, "Hey, babe, like we got Johnny has a soccer practice, or we got bottles to pay for, or milk or formula." So my goal was like, "Hey, Darryl, how can you make sure that you're able to take advantage of these years right now? So therefore, when you do settle down and you do have that family, you've already put in those long, hard hours when you were a single guy. So therefore, that momentum has already started. And when you have that family, you're building off of your momentum." The second thing that really got me started was just, I believe that the only thing worse than failure is regret. The only thing worse than failure is regret. And I repeat that to myself a lot because I don't want to look back years from now and like regret not taking the leap or not taking the jump. Especially, we have the time when we're young to be able to make those mistakes and be able to rebound quickly. So I was talking to one of my mentors. She's like in her mid 50s, and she lost a lot of her money and a lot of her properties during the 2008 cycle. She was saying, Darryl, like it's hard to rebound now when I'm in my late 50s. She said those people who are 20, 30 years old, like they can easily rebound and be able to make that money back and be able to do that. So I just try to share that with people in general. It's like, yo, now when we're young, you can always go back and get those jobs. Like those jobs are always going to be there, especially since you have the skill. So the consulting industry, they literally gave me a raise. They offered me a raise, I think 2 weeks before I put in my 30-day, I gave them a 30-day notice. 2 weeks before I put in my 30-day notice, I actually got a raise. So I was good at what I did. And I knew that, if the business failed, I could always, one, go back and get that job, or two, I knew I wasn't going back. I was like, I could always Uber and Lyft, right? And do what I have to do in order to get myself back to make it happen. But just take advantage of these years that we have and make sure that you're doing things at the end of the day so you look back and you don't regret not taking advantage of the years and taking advantage of that time that we have. Yeah, and setting yourself up for success. So I've had friends who quit with like $2,000 in the bank, right? And some of them have made it, right? And they're doing well. And I've had friends who quit with 2,000, and then they had to go back and get a job a few months later. So what I did was I set myself up for success, and I said, $20,000 is what I need that I can start speaking and doing things for a year. So $20,000 is all I needed for a year to be able to live. So therefore, I wasn't really worried about that year that I wasn't going to eat or that I wasn't going to be able to pay my bills. And also, I had this spreadsheet, for example, that I knew all my bills and I knew how they fell. So I knew that if money was running out, I would have known that, and I would have had 2 months to try to find a new position. So I saved up that money, so I wasn't necessarily worried on that time. So if you're going to quit or if you're going to leave that next position, make sure you're setting yourself up with like funds. And I've had literally 2 friends since I quit, who one friend quit their job 2 months ago, and another friend quit their job a month ago using the same strategy. So you save up that money, and you start getting business, and then you're able to leave and go from there and quit. There's one other thing I wanted to add about that. I think I forgot. When it came to setting up. Oh, something I also share for those like in the corporate environment that I never thought of until I actually left. So for example, let's say I was making $70,000 right now, in corporate America. Think about how much money you're actually bringing home. Because here's the thing: after I quit my job, I was making less speaking than I was in corporate America, but taxes weren't being taken out. So I was actually making the exact same amount of money I was making in corporate America. I was able to take a loss. So therefore, I wound up making the same amount of money I was making in corporate America, even though I wasn't making that same amount. So let me explain that. So let's say I was making $70,000 in corporate America. I was really only bringing home after taxes with that 70, maybe, I want to say they usually take 30%. I'm not a huge math whiz, but maybe I was bringing home $30,000, $35,000, $40,000 after taxes. So a lot of times when we see this number in our head and we're like, some of y'all might be even making more, like I'm making $100,000. How am I going to be able to survive making 100? You need to think about how much you're actually bringing home at the end of the year. And it's a lot easier to get to that number than anything else. So what happened was when I quit that job, and I made less, I was actually able to claim a loss that first year. I was able to get like 3 to 4 because I was working that year and they were taking taxes out of my work check. I was able to get back a tax check for like $4,000 to $5,000, based on the fact that I was working that year. So I want you to think about it differently when it comes to the amount of money that you're making now, and not trying to necessarily match that amount. Think about what's that amount that you need to live, and go from there. I can start with the classics like The Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm always reading. Let me pull up Audible real quick. I'm always like reading new things. There's a book by Brendan Burchard called High Performance Habits that I've literally listened to 2 to 3 times. He actually has an assessment that you can take. So he studied like high performers in different industries, and he actually has like a validated, like science validated quiz or something that you can take, that lists like the top performing habits that high performers, people who like kill in whatever industry there is, and he rates you in those activities. And then throughout the book, he actually gives you actual strategies in order to become better at being a high performer. So that was a book that I've read. My phone actually died, so I can't even. So that's one of those books I'm trying to think of. I literally have a bookshelf over there of a lot of different books that I've read. What I've started doing this year is actually like rereading different things to make sure that I'm actually containing the information. Another book I would recommend is Relentless, From Good to Great to Unstoppable. So Relentless is a guy, it's written by a guy named Tim Grover. So he was the personal. He was the personal trainer to Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Dwayne Wade, as well as a lot of other stars, but those like his main 3. So he talks about like the difference between like the mindset of them compared to other players and other people in different industries. And I took a lot from that when it came to just like pushing hard and pushing through like hard times and a lot of the other things that he talked about, the mindsets of those like high performers. So I'll recommend Relentless as well. And I would say podcasts as well. There's a podcast I listen to by Lewis Howes called School of Greatness. There's also another book called The Miracle Morning, which is all about how we wake up and what we do in that first hour or so, and making sure that your morning literally propels the rest of your day. So The Miracle Morning is like a 5 like strategy thing that you can do in order to make sure that your morning starts off right. So I've literally brought maybe like 10 to 12 copies of that book to give out to friends as well. So check out The Miracle Morning. If you want to like, a lot of people say that I'm not a morning person, but that book proves that anyone can be a morning person if you use these strategies to get up and get work done before that day starts. My book was written about 2 years ago. It's called Waking Up Chase. So I speak to students predominantly, and I wanted to write a book to show students, and a lot of adults have read it as well and got a lot of great value out of it, because the stuff that I write in it can be applied to whatever age group. But the book is called Waking Up Chase. So I want to write a book in order to like help students to be successful, not only in college, but after they get out of college, with like true tenets that they can use to actually propel them forward. So I was going to write a nonfiction book, like a how to do this, do that. But then I thought writing a story that they can read or that we can read would be a lot more interesting. So Waking Up Chase is a fiction story about a student named Chase who wakes up one day. He's a freshman in college, and he realizes that he's 4 years into his future. And that day, he's going to be mentored by his senior year self. So his self 4 years into his future. And his senior year self is teaching him what it took for him to be successful those past 4 years. So it talks all about like making sure you plan early, making sure you create those great relationships in college that propel you forward. And also it talks about fear. So he goes into those types of things, and it's all about, it's just an interesting story about like, I think we can all imagine for a moment, like if we were to meet our future self and our future self was successful, spending a day with that person saying like, yo, John or Raymond, like this is what it took to pass. This is what you need to do for the next 40 years to make sure that you get to where I am right now. So that's what that story is about. It's an interesting story that students have enjoyed. Rated really well on Amazon as well. So check it out, definitely. Yes, I honed into it because people want to hear from experts in any industry, right? So there's a lot of motivation, inspiration speakers out there, right? But I wanted to be an expert in something. So coming out of college, I look probably younger than I look now, and getting it up in front of a group of adults, it would have been like, what do we have in common with this guy, right? He's young, like, what does he know about leadership? Like, what does he know about these different things? So literally doing the whole college thing, I just graduated from college. I did well while I was on campus. So in my eyes, or others' eyes as well, I was an expert in that sense, as some of you might be as well, because you probably killed it as well. So I knew that at the least I could have credibility by going on to college campuses and sharing sharing those ideas. So that's why I chose college, because I just graduated. I had good information when it came to that. And I also knew that I could appeal to that college audience, because I looked like a lot of them. And I had the energy that could get them riled up. I also know the lingo, and I know what they're dealing with. Where sometimes we have these older people coming on campus trying to teach them what to do or tell them what to do, and they're like, you don't really get or understand us. So that was the reason why I chose like the college industry, as well as, and I speak to high schools as well. So this week, when I was in California, I was in California this week. I was in Georgia, Georgia and Charlotte. I spoke at high schools this week, which I don't do often, but they need the messages as well. And a lot of students are dealing with a lot of things that sometimes they don't even share. I think a lot of us sometimes deal with things that we don't share with others. We just keep it in here, like our fears and our insecurities and things about our confidence, a lot of those things. And I knew that if I could help students and just people at where they are right now, and help them conquer those things right now, it will allow them to be able to push through a lot more in the future and be a lot more successful. It's just, hey, y'all, let's just go ahead and make sure we conquer it right now, and not let that stuff stay in your head, and not let people share those things, because a lot of times that's stopping us from getting to that next level. Thank you, man. It's definitely, I like to share that it really is a journey. And I'm glad that you knew me back when I first started, right? So you're able to see that it's not an overnight thing. And sometimes, especially I want to say the millennial generation, like we want stuff like this. And somebody who might know me or might not know me might look at the profile and be, oh, where does guy like come from, or he just probably quit his job and he made all this stuff happen. But you're able to see how I was doing stuff on campus, and I now use a lot of those same stories. I now use some of those things I learned on campus. I'm now using that now. I had a failed business when I got out of college. I then worked for 3 to 4 years in corporate America before I quit my job. So it's a journey. And then when I got out, like my first gig was I think at UNC Charlotte for like $300. And then my next gig was somewhere else for $500. And I remember calling my coach and was like, yo. So this person called and was like, hey, Darryl, like, how much does it cost to bring you out to speak? And I was like, 500. They were like, okay, deal, great. And I called my coach and I was like, dang, is it really that easy? And I was like so hyped to get 500. So a lot of people jump out there thinking that they can like charge thousands and just go out there and do it. But it's literally been a journey where like every day I make mistakes. Every day I try new things. Sometimes I try things and it doesn't work. I'll get on stage and tell a joke, and like sometimes it doesn't work out, right? But at the end of the day, I just want everybody to know a quote that I say to myself as well is like, every master was once a disaster, meaning you have to be okay with being bad at something before you can be good at it. And it takes time to get to that point where you can quit your job, or it takes time to get to that point where you're being interviewed, or you're making $1,000, or you're traveling across the country. So start in your state first and then start expanding, but just be okay with being bad at something, and then eventually get better. And then you'll be amazed when you look back at your old product. Somebody also says that if you're not embarrassed by your first product, you waited too long. When I look back at my first website, like I'm like, dang, this thing was trash. When I look back at my old like slideshows or my slide decks, I'm not necessarily proud. I'm proud of it based on that I got started, but I'm on slide iteration deck 3 at this point. And it's improved so much as I've grown. But if I would have never started, if I would have been embarrassed of that, I would still be working somewhere, and not getting closer to that destiny or that dream, which I'm trying to do. So whatever it is, to anyone listening or anyone who will listen, just be okay with just like not being the best at it from the beginning, and just starting somewhere, and you'll be amazed at how that momentum starts building. And before you know it, you'll be exactly where you want to be. So the goal is to right now, and my stuff changes all the time, right? Where I'm trying to go, what I'm trying to do. My main focus right now is setting up systems in the business. So I'm able to focus more on content and delivering content and delivering value to those people I talk to. So right now, for example, my agent, I have an agent who handles like all my college contracts, campus speak. So a lot of that stuff goes to them when it's college wise. But if someone contracts through me, you know, I'll handle the contracts and send that stuff out and handle a lot of that stuff. But there's systems that you can set up and software and different things that you can put into place where it becomes like a press of a button and things go out. So therefore, I'm not spending hours sending out a contract or having those conversations. It's more of like a system or maybe like a personal system or something that where I'm not worried about those minute business details. I'm worried about, making sure I'm reading books and make sure I'm getting content in order to help students. So right now, my main focus is like setting up those systems. The second thing is when it comes to speaking is a lot of times speakers will speak on a stage for a student group for an hour and students will never hear from that person again. They might follow them on social media, but they're not delivering content to them over a long period of time. So one of my main focuses, and I was thinking about this morning as well, it's called like the Fearless Forever Promise, because I talk about fearlessness, is where right now I have over 2,400 students on my list that are like looking to get content from me that I haven't done in the past year, a good job of keeping in touch with them. And not only students, because I talk to other people as well, but 2,400 people on my list that I haven't done a good job of like keeping in contact with them and giving them fearless content and sharing stories with them and stuff like that. So I want to make sure that everybody that I get in front of, they know that I'll literally be with them, and I say this now, either until they die or I die. So I'll always be sending out emails throughout the next 20, 30 years. And as I grow in this industry, I just want to make sure that I'm definitely keeping in touch with people. And I'm really big on like transformation. So in the future, I see myself not doing as many like 1 hour keynotes. I see myself doing more like day-long events or conferences or like fearless retreats. And I was able to do my first fearless retreat about 2 weeks ago in Cary for 2 whole days with a team. I formed a training company with one of my friends. We were able to do that. And that was like an amazing experience. So I see myself doing more events and building a team of people who's able to go out there and share the message. Because as we know, like with one of us doing something, I think that's cool. But when you're able to have a team that's all committed to the same goal and the same promise of what you're trying to deliver, you're able to impact even more people out there. So I would say creating those systems, making sure that I'm keeping in contact with people long after I speak to them, as well as having more events and creating more products. So even though I'm not in front of I have one book now, there's no reason why I shouldn't have more books out there. There's no reason why I shouldn't have more workbooks out there to make sure that I'm helping as many people as possible. So just keep on growing the brand, man. That's the goal.
Hey, this is Drew. Y'all hear me good?
I can hear you, Drew.
So first of all, I'd like to say thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate what you're doing. It's a lot. What you've been saying, very good. Some great seeds you've planted. Well, I did have a question about one of the points you made in terms of your corporate job and just making the decision to pursue your full-time dream. Is there anything while you're in your corporate job that you feel like you could have maximized that supported your kind of full-time dream? Or do you feel like the most value added you got was literally just going out and saying, you know what, I'm going to do it? Like if you had to, I guess, in hindsight, look back and say, if while I was in that job, I probably could have maximized these couple of things before I made that transition. Or do you feel like literally just making a transition was the best choice?
Good question. So let me answer, and then let me try to answer, and then you let me know if this is where you want to go with this. So the first thing I say is that every job that I had, so my first job was at Wells Fargo, I was a loan processor. My second job was at TIAA CREF. I was doing like retirement products, like on the phone talking to everything, Drew, from like, what's your balance, they would ask me, to I'm retiring tomorrow, like what do I do? And I walked through that process. Then my third job was actually in the consulting industry. So we were consulting with banks like BB&T, Wells Fargo, PayPal. It was a huge, a pretty mid-sized company in Charlotte, working on I was on project management for those technology projects. And looking back, I am thankful for every single one of those jobs, because every single one of those jobs taught me something that I'm learning, or taught me something that I'm able to use in my business right now, especially my last job in consulting, because I use a lot of those techniques. And I use a lot of things when it comes to project management that I'm using now. So I'm 100% thankful for all of those opportunities because I use them now. So sometimes I like to share, or I just want to share with you all that, like, be thankful for where you are now, and just gain as much as you can, because you never know what you're going to be able to use in the future, to be able to help your business, or to be able to help what you do in entrepreneurship. So I'm thankful for my time there, because I use a lot of that stuff. And if I would have came out, and I'm also thankful for that failure when it came to college concierge, because I really wasn't prepared coming out of college. Really, I would have made it work, but I wasn't really totally prepared to run my own company. But after literally being in companies for a while, I was able to learn things that really set me up to be able to really come out and really be able to make it happen. So your question was there anything I wish I would have maximized while I was there? I think I maximized everything. So I had my relationships there, and the only thing that I did maximize that I would recommend everyone to do it is that all those companies that I left, I always left on a good note. So even with that last company, I realized that, and they told me, like, yo, Darryl, like, if it don't work out, come on back, man. We have a job for you. So I gave them a 30-day notice. Like, my boss, we were close enough that she literally knew. I told her like 60 to 90 days before that I was leaving, because we were that close. So literally, I kind of trained my replacement. So I trained my replacement, and then 30 days before, my replacement was kind of already knowing what I had to do. And 30 days before, we told the big boss. So literally, someone like flew into my position. So I set them up for success. So did that answer your question, or do you want me to go a little bit deeper in anything?
No, I think that answered it pretty well. It sounds like even though you had future dreams of running your own business, being in corporate America still kind of sets you up for success.
Hands down. And I learned. I still keep in contact with my coworkers, people that I worked with. But I can say that without my time in corporate America, I wouldn't be as successful as I am right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, definitely. What's going on, Darryl? Definitely appreciate you joining the webinar today.
No problem, bro.
I'm actually in the same role that you were in with TIAA Craft.
Okay.
So talking to people at, retirement and things like that. And one thing I want to know is I'm actually looking at starting a credit repair business. Well, I have it started. I do have the LLC established and everything like that. But what are some things that I can be doing, like, while I'm still working, like, it's kind of piggybacking off of Drew's point. Like, what are some things you can be doing outside of work that will prepare you for that actual transition?
So let me ask a deeper question. So what have you already gotten set up when it came to the credit repair business?
So I have the LLC established. We have a website. We're working on, like, I have it set up where we're working on creating relationships with, like, mortgage officers and auto dealerships, things like that. So I do have, it's actually established, it's bonded and everything. I just don't have the clientele base yet.
Okay, is it you or like a team of people?
It's a team. So I work with my mom and then 2 other people, but it's my business though, and they join along.
So the first piece of advice I say is, like, you need some sort of goal that you're trying to reach. So is your goal to quit your job and do that full time at some point?
Well, right now my goal is to build the business for it to run and operate without me, and I just go out and acquire new business.
Okay. So is there any way that we can start by getting individual clientele? Like, why are we going after companies first? The sales proves everything.
So yeah, I would actually be doing the sales with the actual loan officers and auto dealerships, because most people, you don't just go up to someone and say, hey, you need your credit repaired. It's usually when they're going to buy a house or going to get a car and they're denied, then they're more apt to actually sign up because they know they need it in order to achieve whatever the end goal is for them.
But just getting out, okay. So I know a few people who do the credit repair thing, and I'm trying to say is that there's a lot. So right now, I feel like we're waiting on those companies, right, in order to.
Yeah.
So I want to see if we can get a few people in order to test. We're not test out the concept because we know you can do it, but, like, be able to get those first testimonials, right? So are there individuals in your life and at this age, there's probably some students, or not students, but people around our age who probably millennials who maybe got credit cards in college, or who made bad decisions, or a lot of people who might be trying to buy homes right now. Individuals that we can help in order to get those first testimonials for the website.
Yeah. So
you get that credit.
Right now, I have 3 testimonials.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to expand it more, and like really, because we have everything set up to where we're ready to take on 20 plus clients right now. Okay. We just don't have the actual
first contract.
I feel like our thing is building people seeing the value in the actual getting their credit repair and understanding how impactful it's going to be down the line for them.
Getting those first contracts. I'll have to think about it. We can maybe talk offline about it, kind of go to go deeper. Because once you get that first contract, it literally propels from there.
Yeah, and if we need to talk offline, definitely that works. I know that's on the spot, but that was a detailed question. So
yeah, I think we can talk to you on it, and let me kind of go deeper in.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Hey, first, just want to say thanks, Darryl, man. This is really good insight. I'm learning a lot. I'm over here taking notes. So my question is, as we think about the transition from working to being a full-time entrepreneur, you talked about some of the things you have to have in place. So make sure you're set up for success financially. So maybe having that money saved up. But what would you say are some other things in terms of mindsets or habits that you should start building from when you were working in corporate to being an entrepreneur? For example, your life probably isn't as structured as when you were working a 9 to 5. So what are some of these mindsets or habits that you should have to be a full-time entrepreneur?
I think some of those mindsets, this is AJ, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Some of those things just come automatically, right? So when you're looking at your bank account and you're like, I gotta sell, it kind of makes it easier to kind of get up and make that stuff happen when it comes to like getting on a phone call and making sure that you're being productive. Being transparent. One of the biggest issues that I still kind of deal with 2 years in is making sure that I'm still staying focused and not getting distracted. That's why over a year ago, I got a co-working space at this place called Huga in Charlotte, where I'm able to not sit in my living room and work, but I'm able to kind of focus at another place. So you kind of learn those things as you kind of get out and learn what it is. But that's still a struggle of mine right now, is making sure that I'm staying focused on the things that I need to do on a daily basis. So I say overall mindset, just being able to have that discipline, that daily discipline to get up. So I still get up fairly early. I have a trainer that I'll train with in the morning, which means I have to get up right to train with him. And then knowing that daily routine and planning out that day. But overall mindset, I think the mindset just kind of like comes when you're pushing those limits where you have to make sales. Because once you're out there and those sales have to come in, it's kind of like that pressure that kind of pushes you forward. So I would also add probably like confidence. And I hate saying confidence because that's like a buzzword. I have confidence in yourself, but you really, it's hard out here. And it's not, I think sometimes people make it look easy that you're out there and you can just get the sales. But sometimes like during that first year, there were times where I was close to like, I'm thinking, if I don't get this contract, if I don't get the speaking contract, I might not be able to make it to December. And luckily things came in and things kind of like flowed. But I talked to a lot of other entrepreneurs in general who want other, people who are about to jump out there to know that, sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's difficult, but you have to realize if you really want it, like what is it really going to take and what are you willing to put yourself through mentally in order to actually get there?
Yeah, no, I agree. And the reason I asked that question is, to Drew's question before around, or I forget who asked the question around what could we be doing now, or what could we have taken from our corporate job to bring to the entrepreneurship world? I think about some of the more intangible things that we may overlook. For example, if you're working in corporate, you may have goals that you have to reach every year. You may have a one-on-one conversation with your manager on how you want to progress. And so I think those are certain things that, like, when you go out on your own, don't forget that. Don't forget to set goals. Don't forget to hold yourself accountable because I would imagine you're in a more unstructured environment now, and you have to create your own environment almost to succeed.
Yeah, so I have a group of 2 friends where what we do is at the end of, just like companies, they plan out their month or they plan out their quarter every month, at the beginning of each month or at the end of each month now, because it's in, I was thinking about like December, but at the end of each month, we do a presentation with 3 of us. You have one slide that says what you accomplished that last month, and your next slide talks about what you plan on accomplishing that next month going forward. It's kind of like an accountability group, because like you said, at work, yeah, you're holding each other accountable, or your boss is holding you accountable, but you don't really have that accountability when you get out, except for, if you have a wife, if you have someone who's like, yo, baby, we got to pay these bills. So what we do is every month we kind of have that accountability group where we're able to go over that stuff and hold each other accountable. So if one of my friends don't get something done, I'm like, yo, you said at the beginning of the month that you were going to finish that first chapter of that book. Like, where is it and why haven't you gotten it done? So you kind of feel that kind of connection with people. So that's why I'm just a huge fan of these type of friend groups and these sort of these networks where friends are close enough to be able to be honest and open with each other. And not out of that friend group, but I had a group of people, a mastermind group that about 3 years ago, we all sat down in Panera. It was about 4 or 5 of us. We all sat in Panera and said we want to start our own businesses. And out of that group of 5, 3 of those people are now full-time entrepreneurs. So hanging around those people and sharing these stories and being able to interview people and doing a lot of these things, like all that adds up, and you'll be surprised like years down the line, like how you look back and see how far you've come.
Wow, that's powerful. Thanks, man.
No problem.
Hey, so I'm going to want to piggyback off that question. And also, if anyone has a question, post in the chat and I'll tee you up. But one thing that's kind of been the theme for this whole call is that having a group of support, whether it's peers or coach or having mentors. And I guess you spoke about how do you find a coach, but can you kind of harp on, like, how do you find the right people to associate yourself that will help you support writing that first book or getting that first sale or making your goals?
So in every industry or everything that you've done, there's most of the things that we're doing, it's been done before, or there's someone who's already charted territory. So finding those individuals and figuring out, me and my boy, we talk about anytime we start something, we say, all right, who has the blueprint or what's the blueprint? So let's talk about, is it AJ who has the credit repair?
Here.
Okay, so when it comes to credit repair, there's someone who has that credit repair business already, who already has, for example, like car dealerships or whatever, and they might not be in the North Carolina area, but I would find somebody in California, for example, because therefore you're not really competing with them because you're in a whole different state. You say, yo, I'm gonna pay you $100 an hour, right? To just be able to sit down with you or have a call with you, and you show me your plan as to how you did it. So for example, when my friends start speaking, I already have contracts for them to use. I literally line them up with what to do. And when I coach people, I already line them up for what to do. So I literally lost a question. What was your question again, Jonathan?
Yeah, so my question is, how do you find the peers that help support you and being in a creative environment for yourself to where you want to be successful, where you're not giving up?
Okay, so find those people. So I would say find people who have already done it and figure out how you can offer value first. So for some of those, so for me, my coaches, the value was the money I was paying them. For one of my mentors, he was a speaker and he had a weekend long or like a day long retreat. So I drove to Raleigh. I paid the money to go to the retreat, right? He got a chance to know me because only 4 people showed up, right? So I actually got to ask questions and get value from him. After I left, I went on Amazon, brought his book. I reviewed his book. I let him know that I reviewed it. I then sent him a card saying thank you. And then literally after I did all that type of stuff to give value to him, I think I might have recommended him to my school for him to possibly speak. Around 6 months later, he invited me to go sailing with him and a few friends, and we sailed for like 2 days on the open ocean, right? So imagine being able to just sail for 2 days with one of the guys that you looked up to. He's now a mentor, and he invited you with his friends to go out, and I could ask whatever questions I could for those 2 days straight. But it didn't start with me just going there asking for something. I try to give first and provide value first. So for everyone in your industry, there's something that you might be able to help them with first, or maybe give value with first, and then they'll be more apt to help you. So before you reach out to people, it might be helpful to see if they have any books out there that you can read, because literally people don't know that. Like if someone literally reached out and said, yo, Darryl, I just read Waking Up Chase. I want to tell you how great it is, or I want to ask you questions about that and about your speaking career. Because people have taken interest in me first, I'll easily jump on the phone and give them an hour of my time. But if someone just reaches out like randomly and I'm busy, I'm just gonna be like, yo, it's easy to kind of just push it off because I'm doing a lot of things. So show interest first. Within any industry, there's someone who already has that blueprint. Don't try to remake the wheel. We've heard that multiple times. Don't try to remake the wheel. Figure out what they've done. Figure out how you can meet with them, whether it's paying, whether it's offering value, and go from there.
I feel like we all had to go read this book now.
No, and not something that I
I'm
know to help. But I'm all about, do not reinvent. Find those people who are killing it, and I'm always looking for like new people, new mentors. So once I hit the $100,000, $150,000 mark, I'm like, who making 200? Who making 350? Right? Because the mindset that we have to have with the business at 100 is different than we have to have at 500 in a million. And the person who's your coach or mentor, if they're only making 200, you might need to find that coach who's making 500, who can get you to that next level. So always like finding how we can level up to that next level, whatever it is.
Got you. It's all about leveling up. AJ has another question, so I'm gonna let him.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, I know we're running out on time here, but just want to take it like even a couple steps back and ask, what advice would you give someone who knows they want to be an entrepreneur but isn't sure what they want to do yet? They know they want to work for themselves. They don't know what the vehicle is or what they want to do with that entrepreneurship. What advice would you give to exploring that?
The first thing I would say is you need to start writing things down more often. So whether that's a journal, whether that's like a notes app, whether there's a lot of vehicles we can use, but I think we get ideas all the time, but we don't write them down, or we don't actually spend time on them. So they come in and then they go out our head, and then we just move on to the next thing. So I would say as you start getting those ideas or things that you're interested in, you'll start writing that down and just start evaluating those ideas. So I get ideas all the time, and literally when all these ideas come into my head, I literally just write it down. So therefore I free my brain up to be able to think of more things. So a good example would be my sister. Like she was like, yo, Darryl, I need other streams of income. I want to start a business. And she made a cake one day, and she had my mom take it to her job, and the people loved it. So she said, I'm just gonna start making cakes. My sister now makes like 5 to 6 cakes a week for people in Philadelphia. Even more than that, she's made like up to 8 to 9 cakes a weekend. But it all started with her just started to thinking about, I need another stream, kind of starting to write down those ideas and figuring out where you can start small at. So again, I started speaking for free at first. She started with 1 or 2 cakes. There's small businesses that we can start, but just start like writing that stuff down and start just evaluating those ideas. But a lot of times they just come into our head and we don't kind of think further about it. So just start brainstorming, man, and get around those people also who might be in that same stage and start talking these things out. So I know we all have friends and things like that. So when I started college, not when I started college kind of serious, but when I started deciding I wanted to speak, I actually got a logo created for a different business name. And I would like get stuff created and then run it by friends. Then my friends would be, oh, that's a good idea or not. And then I would kind of evaluate. I think a lot of times we also have these ideas, but we never actually get them started. So my biggest fear for other entrepreneurs or other people in general is that some of y'all might have really, really good ideas and you might be afraid to act on them for certain reasons. And sometimes we wait like 3 to 4 years, and then we start that business and we realize that we probably should have started 3 years ago, so we could have gotten rid of that and got on to the next idea. So for example, let's say college concierge. That was a failure. Let's say I was scared and went to corporate America first. I would probably be on college concierge right now trying that business. And then 2 years from now, I would have started Bellamy Inspired. So go ahead and get those failures out now. Start writing those things out now. Start trying little ways to start those different businesses. And and figuring out if you're even interested in it, and then fly and go from there.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Ooh, so I know Drew has a question. I think that's going to be our last question.
Hit me, Drew.
All right, yeah, I'm just trying to sneak one in before the buzzer goes off. But so kind of as we reiterated throughout this, I think a lot of us in this chat are really interested in entrepreneurship, and we want to eventually make that transition. But we're in a situation where we're in corporate America, we're trying to save money, we're trying to, you know, come up with what we really want to do when that transition time comes. So do you have any recommendations on how to stay motivated in corporate America when we kind of know we're not doing what we're most passionate about at the moment? How do we stay motivated and keep pushing?
So I would say one of my favorite quotes is a quote by Steve Jobs where he says the dots always connect. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back. Know while we're in certain situations or while we're at a job or while we're working certain places, but I can guarantee you 100% that looking back, that you'll always know, like, while you were in those situations, in those dots, in the future. So how do you stay motivated? One way that I stay motivated is I knew that in order to quit my job, I said I wanted to, I think make it, like I was making $10,000. So I knew that number that I needed without that. Remember the first thing I told you where, like, when it came to taxes and all that stuff, I was actually making the same amount. So I didn't know that. So I said to myself, all right, when I get out of this job or when I leave this job, I want to be able to make 70,000. I want to at least be able to make what I'm making in corporate America, so $70,000 a year. And honestly, I could live off a lot less than that. So what I did was I literally wrote my resignation letter and dated it for when I wanted to leave. So for some of you, it might be 1 year, it might be 2 years from now, it might be whenever that might be. So I actually went ahead and wrote that resignation letter. And for some of you, you might even know what you want to do yet. You just might know that you don't want to work in corporate America. And that's fine. You don't have to say why you're leaving. But what I did was I typed up that resignation letter. I actually put it in a frame. I actually wrote a blank check for, I think, $70,000 divided by 12 months is like $3,630 a month, something like that. So I actually wrote myself out that check for $3,630 a month, dated it, signed it. I put it in the actual frame, and I actually put it up on my wall. So every day when I walked out the door, I saw that resignation letter saying I was about to leave. And it's crazy. The same rate, the only thing I had to change on that resignation letter when I actually resigned was my boss's name, because she left 3 weeks before I resigned. So that's what I used to motivate me every single day, was that resignation letter, and knowing that I was getting closer to that date. But I think you need something every single day in order to remind you of what you're trying to work towards. So being around those right people, but that's just one like actual thing that I did with that resignation letter that kind of helped me every day to stay motivated.
Awesome. Thank you for that. That's really, really powerful. Really powerful. I appreciate that.
No problem, man.
All right. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining on the call, especially thank Darryl. I really appreciate you kind of helping us out and kicking this off and really just dropping knowledge. Like, this is something you won't get from the book. You won't get this from just like reading the YouTube channel. We're really being face to face with you and kind of asking the questions that are burning in desire, and you like being open and sharing experience. I truly appreciate, and I'm sure the people on the call appreciate as well. So thank you.
Thank you for the invite. You all have my number, so like I said, I'm pretty open. Like, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we can jump on a call at any point. And I'm willing to help. Like I said, I want all of us to be able to. I think there's enough room in this entrepreneurship game for all of us. I'm all about creating a legacy for not only my future kids but my future family, and for anyone who wants that as well. I'll do whatever I can to be able to help you in that journey. So thank you for the invite. Definitely appreciate it.